may seem to you that all that it takes for a black economic empowerment company to make it big is to find a big and willing corporate, normally looking to triple their BE scorecard ratings, to back them. There's very little obligation on the BE company to make any real investments on the ground or to create employment for that matter. Just how true is it, and is it about to change with the new BEE codes? This is Tonight. I'm Bruce Whitfield. I'm joined by Ismail Laher, who's Director of Commercial Practice at BEE Expert from Norton Fulbright, and Andile Tlhoaele, who's Chief Executive of Inforcomm. My favourite question is, has BEE failed? It seems to have.
I don't think you can say it's failed. I think it needs to be refined a little bit, which is what the current process is happening. We've created black businesses in South Africa, which has really been the focus. And so it has succeeded in some aspects, but failed in others, and it's the failures we're looking at now.
Have we created black businesses, really?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of black ownership of companies.
But black ownership of companies is different to creating black businesses, though. So we've created a generation of incredibly wealthy individuals who've set up investment companies and who've made investments. But they're investment trusts. They're not really nuts and bolts businesses. The BE, that's why I say, has BE failed. Yes, it's empowered and enriched an elite, and in some cases, I think the Sanlam BE scheme has been very effective with Patrice Motsepe in terms of empowering communities. I think that one's been a standout achiever, the Sanlam BE scheme. But generally, the schemes have been designed by corporates to tick boxes and have been enabled well-placed individuals to make some money.
So, I mean, you'll see the focus in the new BE codes, which are coming into force on the 1st of May. There's a lot of input in supplier development. So big companies need to now develop their own suppliers. Big companies now also need to put more focus on developing black-owned enterprises, not just a black-owned enterprise by a rich individual already. You need to have which is owned by a new entrant, someone who has a portfolio of less than 50 million rand, things like that.
Okay, portfolio of 50 million rand or less. Okay, that's an important number. And has BE worked from your perspective?
Look, to some extent it has failed, to some extent it has succeeded. But there are literally three things. One is the intent, reality, and the impact. The intent is to create black businesses. I think for me the failure is the cost-benefit analysis. So what you see now, the lack of an incentive from government to justify the investment in BE, to me, is BE failure. If you look at the procurement regulations, so basically with a 10% discount, as we speak today, a company can get away without doing BE.
Yeah.
So the incentive is not there. So, but then you can't attribute that to the general so-called failure of BE, because what we come across on a daily basis is that you've got close to 500,000 that have been registered at the CIPC in the past 5 years. About 80% of those are black SMME companies that are struggling, that are desperately looking for support to leverage and get access to markets.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I spoke recently to a young guy called Molefe, who started the hookup dinners.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, he would go off to the DTI and he would go off to SARS. And he was just met with walls of obstacles and corruption. So he went, okay, fine, you guys do that. We'll do our own thing. And this guy is operating the most wonderful empowerment vehicle, and that is like-minded individuals getting together and doing it for themselves. Forget government intervention. Sure, they may benefit from the BE codes doing business with large corporates, but they have to do it themselves.
Of course, because remember, the business environment or BE business does not operate outside South African BE business. So all the challenges, red tape that any ordinary business in South Africa go through, and normal black businesses, in fact, they go through 10 times that. And
why does a black business go through 10 times that?
Remember, you're a new entrant into the market. You've got any form of leverage. The first time I understood how VAT work, a guy at SARS told me, Andile, the problem with you and your family and your uncles, you can't ask your uncle how a VAT 201 works. Now, so we are a first generation of black business entrepreneurs. So when I fail the entire generation. When you fail, it's just an incident. So that's why the game is not the same. So which is why for me, you need BE. You need to make sure that the instruments around BE make sure that not only black companies, by the way, all companies in the economy, the red tape, all the requirements that any investor or local company needs to do in order for them to set up a business in South Africa are all fair. But what you need to give just as that extra incentive for black businesses is the support from incentives and grant side and access to markets.
Okay, but does it then not create, Ismail, an artificial business environment? Does not add cost to business? Because if I'm large corporate and I am now required to develop my supply chain, it means that I've got to spend money doing that. It means that I've got to create a structure to do that. It means that I've got to incur an additional cost, which inevitably I pass on to my customers. Does it not just make the cost of doing business in South Africa that much more expensive?
Well, I mean, we need to get the money from somewhere. Yes, we say the government needs to help promote black businesses, which is what it is also looking at. But we also need industry to give back to the country to make sure we can develop new black-owned businesses. So when we get to a point one day in the future where we don't need BEE, once we've reached a state of parity between the races and on an economic scale, then we will create sort of well-owned black businesses, and there won't be the need to give the money back. But we need to create the resources now to grow black-owned businesses.
Do the triple BE codes do that, though? Or do they just create yet another list of boxes that corporates will find clever lawyers to help them tick the boxes around?
The new requirements are going to do that, Bruce. And I'll tell you, I take a different view from companies needing to do social good. It's not about social good. Government is willing to pay a premium for that. It's simple. The 90-10, 80-10 procurement from government. Government is using its procurement power. It says, if you want a license, help me solve my problem. If you want a procurement from me, help me solve my problem. And I'm willing to pay at this rate 10% or 20% for deals less than $1 million. And basically we're saying that's not enough, and which is why it's not worth it for a private company to invest that amount of money. So in an ideal world, the cost benefit analysis, there should be more benefit for private companies to assist black companies, because government is willing to pay the premium for black companies to be assisted, because when the private sector gets involved in assisting black companies, it solves government's intended social problem. So where we are as South Africa, we're not even sure whether, as a result of BE intervention, the social challenges that we see today have been resolved. And I honestly believe that if there was enough incentive from government to give to the private sector so that the private sector can intervene, you wouldn't even see a lot of
what government is doing, it's enforcing behavior. That's what it's seeking to do.
No, it's not. It's not an enforcement. You don't have to do it. It's an incentive.
No, but it's a disincentive. If you don't do it, you will be prejudiced. You will not be able to do business with government. So therefore, you will be punished for not doing it. It's a big stick.
No, I'm saying it's only a stick at this stage because there's not enough incentive.
Yeah.
To get a license, for me, it's an incentive. It's not a stick. It's a condition for doing business.
That's a stick.
Like, it's not. I mean, in any environment, there are conditions for doing business. It just happened that in South Africa, we have these extra social conditions that we would like you to assist us, but in return, we're going to give you an incentive. One, you're going to get access to grants. You look at the grants that the motor industries have received over the years, anywhere in the world, with no obligation to do anything. You see, all government is saying, guys, we have an issue. We want to promote small businesses, right? 50 million or less companies, work with them, right? If you help them, they help you, you come to us. I have yet to see a large company that has done a BE transaction and says, this to us was not worth it. You know, because we don't see any benefit that we are deriving from it.
What's been the best BE deal done in South Africa to date?
I think it depends where you're coming from. I mean, you've got the SAB, you know, where there's a real trickle-down effect in changing the mentality of drivers from being employees and to be owner managed. You see, for me,
that's significant.
Yes, so I'm just saying, for me, that's a change. And suddenly, there's a responsibility on the maintenance of their cars, so the company benefits. Where else in the past, people didn't really give a damn about the company's fleet. So it depends where you come from. But all I'm saying, Bruce, is that I think government needs to come to the fore.
If there is a model, though, that you would like to see BE based on into the future, pause for a moment and think about it. What model would that be? Who has done it best in South Africa in terms of real empowerment of real business people who've created businesses that are no longer in need of any kind of support as well?
I think one of the best examples of a BE deal in South Africa is Exxaro Resources. This is a 50% plus black-owned mining company. It's setting up businesses around the world, not just in South Africa. It's owned by business people. It's managed by business people. The recent appointment of Mxolisi as the CEO starting in March 2016. Sipho Nkosi will be stepping down. These are black CEOs running a black-owned company. I think it's one of the best deals we've had in this country so far.
Okay, so Exxaro gets the thumbs up from you, Ismail. Come on, give me some hope here that it hasn't all been.
Two-manati structure for me again at the equity level. So it depends. At what level are you doing BE? You've got the employee structure.
We've got employee structures which are giving people who've got jobs.
That did not work. So what is going to happen from the 1st of May? The focus is moving away from that. All what government is calling the priority points focus on external basically impact on the company, which is skills development, supply development. So what I'm yet to see is a huge BE deal that focuses on supply development, on developing black competitive global entrepreneurs that can not only do business in South Africa, but they can export into other countries as a result of support they've received.
How is it going to be different, though? And forgive my skepticism. You look at land reform, and you look at the disaster of land reform, where people have been given farms, but not the tools to, and the skills to run the farms. You look at so much of that sort of transformation of agriculture, which has bombed, and it's actually let people down really badly. Why do we not see a repeat through these triple BE codes of that sort of disaster happening here?
I think the difference now is the ownership that an entrepreneur or the business owner is going to take. Unlike those where it's a handout, this is not a handout. There are no handouts. There are no donations. People have to earn them, and there are risks involved. And I can tell you, every single entrepreneur that I've encountered that went through a failed BE venture, he comes out different. He has suddenly learned how capital works. He suddenly learn how value works. By the time you close that door, Bruce, we forget that it's a BE deal. We start focusing on the business of business.
Well, there we go. The business of business. Ismail Laher, Director of Commercial Practice and BE Expert from Norton Rose Fulbright, and Andile Tlhoaele, who's Chief Executive of Inforcomm. The new BE codes, the triple BE codes, come into force later on this year. We'll look at more of this and other issues on the show again tomorrow. For now, good night.